What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you enjoyed the 2022 NFL Draft and that you're very excited about what the Dallas Cowboys did. 9 selections by our Cowboys. Some very interesting ones, some potential. They're in the 5th round, obviously. We've talked about that. In case you missed it, we did a video here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Please do subscribe with a grade on the class as a whole. And while we have a lot more to discuss as things unfold, time unfolds, we'll dive into the class. We'll have some film reviews about the newest members of the Dallas Cowboys. As far as draft picks are concerned, we're here today for a very different reason. The NFL draft, of course, is about the players that each teams choose with their predetermined picks and whatnot, but it's also about what happens after the draft. Stephen Jones loves to refer to this as college free agency. Most people tend to refer to it as undrafted free agency. There are players who unfortunately do not hear their name called during their draft, but do sign with teams as undrafted free agents. The Cowboys have a lot of success historically with undrafted free agents. Notably, Tony Romo, of course, was an undrafted free agent in 2003. Miles Austin. The Cowboys have some current undrafted free agents on their roster. Luke Gifford, kind of the biggest one there. But Dan Bailey, a kicker, a big-time kicker for the Cowboys, is an undrafted free agent. So it is a path that is definitely full of big-time stories. Hall of Famers, Kurt Warner, obviously. We could go on and on and on. But let's take a look at the Dallas Cowboys undrafted free agency class here in 2022. A very quick note before we begin that I am recording, putting together this video at about 11:30 a.m. Central Time on Sunday, May 1st. Happy May to you, by the way. So there are chances that this may have changed by the time you're watching this video, but nevertheless, here's what we are looking at. The Dallas Cowboys so far have 19 UDFAs on their team, and obviously, it's going to be difficult for all of them to make the roster. I think we've sorted this, by the way, alphabetically for you. And I think that the biggest chance, if you have to put money on one player to make the roster for the Cowboys, is they're a little bit past the middle. Jonathan Garabe, the kicker out of Texas Tech. I know a lot of people, myself included, wanted to see the Cowboys draft a kicker. A lot of people were very high on a different kicker out of the Lone Star State. Of course, Cameron Dicker from the University of Texas. Dicker the kicker, a very popular name among college football fans and NFL draft hopefuls, but he wound up signing, of course, with the Los Angeles Rams as an undrafted free agent. But Jonathan Garabe is somebody who I think we should all be extremely excited about if we're being fair to the idea. Last year in 2021, Garabe made 15 of 16 field goals. The lone miss was a 53-yarder, which isn't necessarily an easy thing in the world of college football. He was he made 49 of his 50 extra point attempts, and so he's a fairly reliable kicker, which is something that we needed. You know, the Cowboys obviously moved on from Greg Zuerlein, rightfully so, over the offseason. There was talk and chatter that they maybe wanted to bring him back. That never made sense. But Jonathan Garabe, again, if you're looking at this whole list, and I know that you might have a different name, we're going to talk about a few of them here, but he probably has the highest percentage chance of making the Cowboys roster. We'll see if they bring in a veteran to compete with him. It would make sense, obviously, for the Cowboys to at least have multiple options at training camp. But Jonathan Garabe, again, given the success that the Cowboys have had with undrafted free agent kickers before, namely Dan Bailey 11 years ago, that's the one where I think you can put a lot of chips on and feel very confident about it. Looking at this list, though, there are some names to be excited about. The name at the very top, again, this happens to be sorted alphabetically, and he happens to have gone to my school in Texas A&M, but Aaron Hansford, the linebacker, very exciting name. The Cowboys, of course, did draft 2 linebackers, but we'll see, obviously, the situation with Damone Clark has to unfold. The Cowboys did talk about in their post-draft press conference that he could play in 2022, but as we mentioned in the video where we did our grade on the whole class, that's just kind of, things that NFL teams say, which is fine, and good for the Cowboys. They should be patient with this. They shouldn't just declare he's not going to play at all this season. But we'll see. So if we're assuming fairly so that the Cowboys aren't going to get any contribution from Damone Clark here in 2022 specifically, they did also draft Devin Harper with their last pick in the draft there in the 6th round. But Aaron Hansford has a really also strong chance of making this roster. Again, I mentioned Luke Gifford is a current undrafted free agent on the Cowboys roster. So we've seen them carry linebackers from that path before. Francis Bernard, obviously, is another name And Aaron Hansford was 195 on Dane Brugler's overall board, and so somebody who was evaluated as a potential draft pick. Sometimes players just slip through the cracks for whatever reason, but you consider the Cowboys linebacker depth, and I use that word somewhat loosely. We obviously can include Micah Parsons in that mix, but Leighton Vander Esch, who's coming back on a one-year deal, the aforementioned Luke Gifford, great special teams player, Jabril Cox, who's on his way back himself from injury. The Cowboys, need some bodies there, and I think that Aaron Hansford is a guy, somebody who played very well at Texas A&M. I can tell you that myself, who has a very strong chance of making this roster as well. I think he's the best overall, has the highest overall potential from the class if you just consider all the names all together. Again, if you're looking at highest likelihood of making the roster, again, I would go Jonathan Garabe, but some of that is relative to his position. But Aaron Hansford, another name to be very excited about. The Cowboys did not draft a running back, which is something that was a little bit surprising. Obviously, when you look at the future of this team in 2023, Tony Pollard is going to be a free agent, and the Cowboys can get out of Ezekiel Elliott's contract relatively scot-free for the first time since they gave him that deal 3 years ago. Stephen Jones did mention in the team's post-draft press conference this idea. He also noted that Rico Dowdle is going to be a restricted free agent next offseason, and when he talked about Zeke, Stephen Jones specifically said Zeke's making a lot of money. I did a TikTok about this. No big deal. If you want to follow me on TikTok, RJ Ochoa. I'm trying to embarrass my son as much as possible. I know he's a baby right now, but trying to get ahead of that. So that's where I'm doing it, is over on TikTok. And so the Cowboys are clearly telling us that the writing is on the wall at the running back position. That's why we thought that they were going to draft one, but they did not. So it was always going to be very interesting once the Cowboys did not spend a draft pick on a running back, who they signed in undrafted free agency. Going from top to bottom, Aaron Shamkin, running back out of Harvard. It's not every day that an Ivy League player makes it to the NFL, so that's a little bit interesting there. And you look at it, he's not the only one the Cowboys signed, obviously. One more, Malik Davis out of Florida. It's so, I think that we all maybe thought that the Cowboys were for sure going to find a running back. Again, we assumed it would be a draft pick that would be on the roster this season, but it's difficult to envision that happening, especially when you look at, obviously, you've got Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, and I think the Cowboys even carrying 3 running backs on their 53-man roster. By the way, the plan is later on this week to have a predicted or projected 53-man roster video for you here on the channel. We will also have an article available with that same idea at bloggingtheboys.com. And when we do that exercise, I don't know that we'll even carry 3 running backs. Rico Dowdle would be the 3rd right now, and I don't know that Malik Davis necessarily comes in and challenges him. But, he's a body, and that's how the Cowboys have discovered other would-be potential running back options before. But it was curious to see them only bring in 2 running backs, and neither one that was particularly notable. I think another name that a lot of people are extremely excited about when it comes to this list, the Cowboys' current undrafted free agency class, they did not draft a safety, and the Cowboys don't necessarily have a need at safety, which is a very interesting place for the franchise to be just because they are the Dallas Cowboys, but a very, very strong favorite by a lot of people, and a lot of people were very comfortable spending a 5th-round pick on him, a 6th-round pick on him. Obviously, the Cowboys had 4 5th-round picks, but Marquis Bell out of Florida A&M, and it was Florida A&M who broke the news. He was one of the very first undrafted free agents to sign with the Cowboys as soon as the draft ended. That's a really strong option, I think. The Cowboys actually signed a few safeties here, and again, these are all sort of alphabetically for you by their names, not their position, but Wanye Thomas out of Georgia Tech and LeKendrick Van Zandt out of TCU, so they've got some competition there, certainly throughout training camp and whatnot, and they did lose DeMonte KZ, wound up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so there is technically an open roster spot as far as what they carried last year. Jaron Kearse is somebody who they brought back, so is Malik Hooker. You have to imagine the lion's share of opportunity is going to go to them, but, and this is where Jaron Kearse kind of comes into play, that safety position, that classic safety position, is now just kind of a linebacker for them. That's why Jaron Kearse is what he is as far as value to the Cowboys. That's where today's NFL or rather how today's NFL is played defensively, and Dan Quinn knows that better than most, obviously, but still 3 very intriguing options. Man, I thought I had to cough right there, but I managed to fight it down. Congratulations to me. Only one tight end. The Cowboys did, of course, draft Jake Ferguson in the 4th round out of Wisconsin. And so you look at the totality of their tight end group now. They've obviously got Dalton Schultz on the franchise tag. I think Jake Ferguson comes in. He's your tight end 2 right away. I really like that pick relative to what the expectation for him is supposed to be. You've got Sean McEwen. You've got Jeremy Sprinkle, who the Cowboys brought back. I don't know that, Peyton Hendershot has a real chance at making this roster, but an interesting name nonetheless. Several wide receivers. I know that a lot of us wanted to see the Cowboys bring in Justin Ross out of Clemson. At the time that I'm putting this video together, I don't believe that he has even signed with a team, which is very interesting, just because, there's always those names, right, where we think, like, surely this player is going to get drafted. Surely this player is going to go, first round, top 100, whatever the case may be. But that's the trickiness and the funniness of the NFL draft, is that sometimes everybody is wrong in that sense. So Justin Ross still an option, but the Cowboys are bringing in a few wide receivers. They, of course, drafted Jalen Tolbert, my favorite draft pick of the class, likely yours, a very popular pick. But there you see in the middle two of them, Dennis Houston out of Western Illinois, and Dontario Drummond out of Ole Miss, obviously D. Williams' teammate. And I know you might be thinking Sam Williams. We had D. Williams on our show on Saturday. If you have not seen that, we do have that interview available on our feed as well. He asked Cowboys fans to call him D. Williams and not Sam Williams. And of course, Ty Freifogel at the very bottom there out of Indiana. The Cowboys, I mentioned their history with undrafted free agents, and Miles Austin is a very notable free agent that undrafted free agent that the Cowboys franchise has had. Lucky Whitehead was an undrafted free agent who the Cowboys had. There's always one that people tend to kind of fall in love with, and really kind of invest themselves emotionally into, because that's a position you see a lot of throughout training camp or the preseason. Those highlights are easier to kind of digest and absorb. But I don't know that any of these necessarily make the roster. The Cowboys wide receiver room is now a little bit full, especially after the drafting of Jalen Tolbert. We tend to also forget and overlook the signing of James Washington in free agency. Altogether, I also, by the way, overlooked Jaquari Roberson out of Wake Forest. So a lot of competition at wide receiver for the Cowboys in undrafted free agency, but you need a lot of bodies. Some offensive linemen sprinkled in here. I think somebody who's really interesting is Alec Lindstrom, the center out of Boston College. Of course, has a bit of an NFL lineage from his family. Thinking about the Cowboys center propositions, Tyler Biadasz, obviously the starting center. I've referenced the post-draft press conference several times. The Cowboys announced, if you want to call it announced, this wasn't like breaking news, but still they noted that Matt Farniok, their late-round draft pick from last year, is going to be played at center now. So the Cowboys really have a lot of competition going on now at center. They're clearly not totally satisfied with the position, and that's fair. I think Tyler Biadasz is both somehow underrated and a little bit overrated at the same time, which is really unique. But Alec Lindstrom, I think, has another really strong chance of making this roster. We've seen undrafted free agents make the Cowboys roster along the offensive line. Mitch Hyatt, back to the Clemson discussion we just had a little while ago with Justin Ross. I mean, there is a chance there. So I think of all the offensive linemen here, I think Alec Lindstrom might have the very best chance to make this roster. I think we're looking at, You might be looking at this list saying, I can see 3, 4, 5 names. I think 2 names is being generous here, and I'm including Jonathan Garabe, the kicker out of Texas Tech. It's just very difficult. I don't even think that we can say confidently that the entire Dallas Cowboys draft class is going to make their roster, and that's even factoring in Damone Clark probably being on injured reserve at the beginning of the season. So, that's a unique thing there. It's undrafted free agency. You're looking at a lot of practice squad candidates here, guys who might make teams elsewhere across the NFL. But hey, let's be open to surprise. Let's see who's going to shock us and who's going to really show themselves as some talent that the Cowboys found as diamonds in the rough. I think the names to know, the names to pay the most attention to over the course of OTAs and mini camps and through training camp and preseason, and we'll obviously be here with you along for the entire ride. If we just go down the list, Aaron Hansford, I think, has a great chance to make this roster, especially when you consider the Damone Clark situation. You have to look for ways and reasons players like this, undrafted free agents, can make the roster. And so the Damone Clark situation opens a door for Aaron Hansford. I think Alec Lindstrom has a really strong chance, a really great center option for the Cowboys out of Boston College. So that's one to pay attention to. I don't know that any other names near there at the top necessarily have a chance, but Jonathan Garabe has the highest percentage chance in my estimation of making the Cowboys roster. And again, so much of that is because of the position he plays, because the Cowboys have a need. And he was awesome last year at Texas Tech, so that should be said as well. Marquis Bell, I think, is a very, very legitimate option too. Very strong chance. We'll see how training camp and the preseason and everything unfolds as mentioned. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see how all these players shock the Cowboys. So again, I put this video together about 11:30 a.m. Central Time on Sunday, May 1st. Didn't see too many "it's going to be May" jokes or memes this year, which I think says society's finally letting that meme go. But yeah, so those are the 19 names we have as of now. It's very possible, as has mentioned that changes or that there are additions to it, rather, over the course of the next few days. That's just kind of the way undrafted free agency tends to unfold, but we wanted to get something up here to kind of give you a heads up, a 101 on what to expect from the Cowboys undrafted free agency class. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa. Like I said, on TikTok at rj.ochoa. If emails more your speed, you can hit me up, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Thanks for joining us, everybody. The draft was fun, and we'll see you next time.